episode 7. Alexander the Great podcast. How's it going, everyone? Fucking hell, Greece is on fire. The fire is about 50 kilometers away. 50k is about, 20 miles? No? 30 miles, something like that. So it's fucking close, man. So I might as well record an episode now, seeing that I have all my gear, my microphone, my computer, my notes. This might be the last ever episode if my house goes on fire. Fuck me. If you want to help the podcast, please donate on my PayPal page or through Patreon if you want to provide something every month. Every review has write a good review, a funny review, 5 stars, make it lovely and put a bit of effort into it, and I'll send you a gift depending on the best review. I hope everything's okay. Let me know what you think about the podcast. Send me a message on Facebook. You can follow me on Facebook and also on I'm also on YouTube. That's it, guys. Hope you like the episode. Bye-bye. Last time we saw Phillip for the first time as King of Macedon lose his first battle to Phokida's latest general, Onomarchos. He loses 2 battles. We don't have specifics about each one, how it went down and that sort of thing. After his loss, he takes his men back to Pella, which he has to reorganize and re-strategize his shit, right? Basically, he's just taking a step back to see where he was falling short. We're in the summer of 353. Charitas, an Athenian general, whom we have talked about a little in the previous episode, was marching against Kersovleptis. He manages to conquer a place called Sisto, and with the Ecclesia's blessing, all the men are killed and the women and children are sold into slavery. Now, this kind of thing definitely hasn't aged well, right? You would think, because Athens being the birthplace of democracy and all that, are kind of like hippie people. Yeah, bro, you and me, we're equal. But that couldn't be further from the truth, as the people of Sisto would have loved to tell you. In the meantime, the Chalkidikian League or Olympians, or however you want to call them, are trying to form an alliance with Athens. Phillip is going to remember this. Alright, bitches, I guess that's how it's going to be. In about a year after Phillip was back in Pella, he somehow manages to take care of all the immediate threats. We don't really have information about how he did this. If you remember, we closed last episode with the Illyrians, Paeonians and Thracians having a different opinion about Phillip after his loss against Onomarchos, after his 2 losses. So Phillip begins his descent into southern Greece with an army of 20,000 infantry and 3,000 cavalry. Lycophron from Pheres finds out that Phillip is making his move, so he runs off to tell Onomarchos, yo, help a brother out. Justin tells us that Lycophron also bribes the Athenians to help. Not sure why he had to bribe them. I'm sure they would have loved to help free of charge. Who, Phillip? Yeah, of course we'll help. Hey, I tell you what, we'll pay you to let us fight him, is what they probably would have said. We should remember that this is Athens, right? They were hoodwinked by Phillip a few times with the whole Amphipolis situation. Phillip was saying he was fighting to get the city and then simply give it to Athens, but when he actually held the city, he just kept it for himself. So the Athenians decide to send Charitas and his fleet to the Pagasetic Gulf, Pagasetikos in Greek. So you can keep an eye on Pagasses, a Thessalian harbour. He was told to keep the harbour out of Philip's reach until Onomarchos joined the club and brought his Pherem cavalry and mercenaries. But Phocian cavalry, really. But they haven't taken into account the lightning speed that the Macedonians are capable of travelling. Philip meets Onomarchos on the plains of Crocus, or Krokeon in Greek. Philip orders his men to wear laurel wreaths as a symbolism that they are fighting in honor of the god Apollo. Justin tells us that because of this, some Phocians start to feel guilty, therefore giving up some of the positions. Philip's 3,000 cavalry beat the 500 Onomarchos had, and 20,000 Macedonian sarissas managed to find an uncovered part of the Phocian phalanx and jam it in. Victory was absolute, as N.G.L. Hammond says, also a great historian who's written a fabulous book, an amazing book about Philip. The Phokians lose 6,000 men and another 3,000 are kept hostage. Under Philip's orders, the hostages are sentenced to death by drowning, as is the tradition in Greece when dealing with the sacrilegious. Onomarchos was one of the 6,000 men who died. He drowned while swimming towards the Athenians. Philip finds his body and orders for it to be crucified. He makes an example out of him and basically warns everyone else, don't fuck with the gods or you're going to be dealing with me. Philip is obviously mimicking the Punisher, you may be thinking. Also, what might have crossed your mind is this guy is a very religious person, right? But something is telling me that he's being this extra patriotic, extra vengeful person because he wants the other Greeks to take a liking to him, right? The Phokians don't give a shit, right? They've just lost the battle, they hear about Onomarchos' death, and like, yeah, so what? So they just pick a new general, Philos, and you have to be impressed with their lack of self-awareness, right? Even though they've lost their third general, I think the third, half their army, yeah, man, we're just ready to go. Philos just takes a bit of extra money from the treasury at Delphi and hires some extra mercenaries. This time the payroll is double what it was for the average mercenary. He's trying to make them not feel guilty about the fact that they're stealing from the secret treasury. Lycophron from Pheres gives himself up and his city to the Macedonians. Philip allows him to leave the city. He even takes his buddy Pitholaos, another tyrant from Pheres, along with 2,000 mercenaries. Philip is going to regret this, right? Pitholaos and Lycophron are going to be creating some trouble for him in the near future. The Athenians, ever since Philip's victory, get an iffy feeling about the war. From now on, they're not going to be as invested as they once were. The Phokians are counting on other cities, mostly enemies of Thebes, cities like Sparta, Corinth, Epidavros, and Phliundas. The battles are going to be small. Philip has definitely shown everyone that they were wrong to count him out. I guess Stallone was right, you know? It's not about how hard you hit, it's about how hard you get hit and keep moving forward. With a fucking accent. I can't do the American accent very well. After defeating the Phokians, he is trying to implement some kind of regularity on his southern borders. So he doesn't head to central Greece and put an end to the Sacred War like the Thebans would have loved him to do. No, he's keeping an eye out for himself. That's a nice lesson for everyone, right? You got to look out for yourself. No one else is going to do it for you. So he goes to Thessaly. The Thessalian League love him, but Pheres are the ones that are creating all the trouble. Philip is going to get married for a fifth time, a lady by the name of Nikisipoli. She was a niece of Jason, a tyrant from Pheres that we mentioned last time, whom the Thessalian League had assassinated. They're going to have a daughter together called Thessaloniki, meaning Thessalian victory. And it's from this little girl that in a later time Cassander is going to name Greece's modern co-capital, Thessaloniki, Salonika, a very beautiful city. So we see Philip want to have Pheres on his side, marrying into one of the top families in the city. In 352, he banished some Pherean citizens, politicians to be precise. They were trying to get people to attack cities like Trikala and Farkadona. Yo, what you doing? I'm trying to create some stability over here. Other devoted members of the League get special treatment, like Pellina, Kranona, and Romphus. He gives them land. And to make up for the loss, he sells part of the population into slavery. It's all about balance. Also, he renames Romphus to Philippoupoli, Philip's town, η πόλη του Philippou. A big moment for Philip, right? Naming his first city after himself. Alexander is going to name somewhere around 70 cities after himself, so we see where he got the idea from. He takes Pheres' harbor in the parasitic Gulf. This has to sting, right? Watching someone else run your harbor. And it's also around this time, 352, that Thessaly names Philip lifetime ruler of Thessaly. Most of the remaining texts we have from ancient Greece were written by Athenians. Now, I want to believe other states also wrote down their thoughts, but they were lost, right? It was 2,500 years ago, after all. We are very lucky with what we have. So we don't completely know where I want to go with this. So we don't completely know what a lifetime ruler of Thessaly means. We know for certain that Philip would from now on command the Thessalian army and its impressive cavalry. We don't see him use the title Tagos, which this was clearly a Thessalian title, right? The last thing he wants to do is piss off his most powerful, at the moment, allies. That's probably why he got married to Jason's niece. It probably helped him get named lifetime ruler of Thessaly. He now has 4 votes for the Amphictyonic Council, as the towns Perevia and Magnesia each had 2 votes, now become his. Any taxes they pay are now being sent to Philip, and he then installs Macedonian garrisons and tells his local population in Macedonia, hey everyone, you should start thinking about moving down south. The weather is better, we can loot small towns much easier, and it's just a nicer place to be. He sends his people to Tembi. This is a part of Greece that everyone who travels from north to south has to cross. So it's a great opportunity to check who's coming in, who's going out. You know, what have you got there? Is that special wine that's going to the Elysian Mysteries? By the way, has anyone read The Immortality Key? Please let me know what you think. It's definitely on my list. I'm definitely reading that. I'm reading something else at the moment. Philip now sets his sight to Thermopylae, Thermopyles in Greek, or hot gates would be the literal translation from Greek. It's called the hot gates due to its hot sulfur springs. The Greeks thought that the water's heat meant that it was a gate to the underworld. The same Thermopylae, or hot gates, that Leonidas' 300 men, along with 400 Thebans and 700 Thespians, had their famous battle against the Persians. They were the last that were left after Ephialtes, today's modern Greek word for nightmare, ratted out a way that the Persians could reach the Greek coalition's army's rear. As Worthington says, whoever controls the hot gates controls the entrance into southern Greece. Philip would have agreed with Worthington, but Pitholaus, being a clever little cunt he is, manages to beat Philip to it. After, of course, he gets a bit of extra money from the treasury of the oracle at Delphi, money that's going to be used for mercenaries. My little dog Kasperak, or Casper, is underneath so if you can hear any breathing, it's him. Other cities are going to help Phokis. 2,000 soldiers are sent from Achaia, 1,000 from Sparti or Sparta. Sparta, let me just a little break. The Spartans would have said Sparta because they're Doric. They speak Doric Greek. The rest of Greece, or the Ionian Greeks, would say Sparti. In Greek, modern Greek would say Sparti. So the translation, though, you hear, I'm guessing if you're English speaking, you hear Sparta a lot, which is how the Spartans would say it. So if I say it the wrong way, Sparti, Sparta, they're both right. Anyway, yes. 2,000 soldiers are sent from Achaia, 1,000 from Sparti, 5,000 from Athens, plus 400 cavalry and 2,000 infantry from Pheres under Lycophronas. Lycophronas, who was let free by Philip. I told you earlier this was going to bite him in the ass. He should have got rid of him, but, you live and you learn. The cities I mentioned earlier, Achaia, Sparti, Athens, and Pheres, are not fighting to honor Phokis' legacy, right? They don't give a shit about all that. They're fine, how it was doubled, yada, yada, yada. The only thing they care about is don't let the Macedonians cross the hot gates. In their mind, Philip will probably have the Thessalians with him, maybe even the Thebans. Both these cities have shown hostility against Phokis, Athens and Sparta. So it's going to, it could be entirely possible they're all working together. So in August of 352, Philip arrives at the hot gates with a few Thessalians, nothing crazy, and he sees a massive coalition of armies. The hot gates are famously back then, a tight passage, so Philip doesn't have room to spread out his cavalry and his well-trained phalanx. He already has a loss against Onomarchos. He knows that you only get a certain number of losses before your army stops taking you seriously. If he had some Thebans helping him, maybe he would have had a chance. The Thebans were open to helping him, but not after he was called lifetime ruler of Thessaly. When Philip decided that he wanted to expand in his influence in Thessaly and not attack Phokida and just simply end them, he showed his true colors, right? He was not taking part in the holy war in honor of Apollo and all that silliness. He was taking part in the holy war for his own interests. And with that in mind, the Thebans hold a neutral stance. Philip realizes that he's about to get his ass kicked, so he returns to Pella. Now, you can't blame him, right? It says a lot about his character that he didn't just go out on an all-out attack and whatever happened, happened. Yes, he did have a goal, the Hot Gates, but the variables have completely changed. It's not just the Phocaeans, it's the Athenians, Spartans, Achaeans, and that prick Lycophron. So yeah, Philip bounces back to Macedonia. This was in August of 352. In November of that year, he was in Thrace. So it's not like he went home and, cried himself to bed every night and watched Bridget Jones's Diary. He didn't grab a couple of boys and decided to show them a good time, Greek style, or 4th century before Christ Greek style. No, he pretty much got straight to it. The problem had started when he was busy in southern Greece. Thrace had Chersophleptis trying to unite all of Thrace into a single kingdom. Also, Olynthos had formed an alliance with Athens. He's given a chance against Chersophleptis when Byzantium, Perithos, and Amadokos all team up against him. They in turn then ask Philippos for help, and he's like, yeah man, count me in. Oh, fucking hell. Someone's moving stuff upstairs, sorry about that. So they ask Philip for help, so they help him. So he says, yes, of course, I'd love to beat Chersophleptis. He meets up with his team at the Iraeon Walls, a fort close to the Sea of Marmara, about 560 kilometers away from Pella. The Athenians find out that he's this far away from home, and they order an emergency meeting. They tell everyone that they have to pay additional tax and save the precious city. The Athenians are fearing that they would lose their connection to their main wheat supplier from the Black Sea, so their thinking is if Philip conquered Thrace, it's up to him if they starve or not. They manage to put together 40 talents, and with this money they get 40 triremes packed with Athenian citizens and are ready to send them to Chersophleptis. Chersophleptis is hiding some of the truth, right? He hasn't told Athens that one of the enemies is Byzantium. Byzantium is a powerful state. Nothing good would come by fighting them. So the Athenians are having second thoughts. Some of the smartest of the group start talking. They end up giving up on the whole idea. For now, they're staying home. Something happens to Philip. He needs to lie down for a few days. It could have been the flu, a hangover, we don't have a clue. So the Athenians are like, yeah, now we got him. So they send 10 triremes, but with mercenaries this time. But as we know, even the worst hangover passes. Philip gets better and continues to besiege the city. He is successful, and he then gives the city to Perinthos. At the same time, Philip finds Chersophleptis' son. He was probably in the city he was besieging. He takes him back to Pella with him. For most people, if someone was to take your child, you would probably give up, right? Okay, I'm done. But not Chersophleptis. He doesn't give a fuck, as we're going to see at a later time. The boy is going to be taken care of. Most people, including myself, think that he was going to be one of Philip's youths, as we saw in a few episodes ago. On his way back, as we can tell by reading Demosthenes' first Olympian speech, he says he tries something in Olynthos. This probably means he just told them, hey guys, remember our alliance? Yeah, you do? Okay, good. We know for sure there was no bloodshed. Demosthenes would have loved to tell us. And in 351, we're in 351 now. A couple of years ago, remember in 352, after Philip's defeat by Onomarchos, Olynthos had taken a look around and see who else wanted to have an alliance with him. But it didn't go much further. Philip is doing better nowadays, so they assured him it's all good. For them to prove their loyalty, he asked them to exile an anti-Macedonian politician by the name of Apollonides. Yes, anything else, Philip? Yeah, you're going to use two friends of mine, Lasthenis and Ephikratis, as your cavalry generals? Absolutely, say the Olynthians. The Paeonians, Illyrians, and Epirotes want to split Macedonia. Philip stops this from happening. The Molossian king, a tribe from Epirus, is still going to be Arivas, but with much less power, and just to be sure, he takes his son to Pella. The boy's name is Alexander. This poor kid is Olympias' nephew and brother. Don't ask me how that works. It's a people of Epirus. They have their own customs. And while he's taking Alexander to Pella, Philip also takes the Molossian currency out of circulation and switches it with his own. Philip is always taking care of business. And one final comment about Philip taking Alexander. It's definitely strange, to say the least. He already had Olympias, Arivas' niece, and he decided to revolt. Would taking his son make that much of a difference? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe Justin is right. He claims that Philip was just into the kid. He was a PYT, a pretty young thing. He was born in 370, so now he's roughly 20 years old. It could have been love at first sight, but Justin gives us a different reasoning. This is straight from Justin. He engaged him after earnestly tempting him with hopes of his father's throne, and pretending violent love for him in a criminal intercourse, thinking to find greater submission from him, whether through shame on account of his guilt or through obligation for a kingdom conferred upon him. And then later on, and corrupted him to whom he gave it before he made him a king. So, end quote. If we believe Justin, Alexander from Epirus was taken by Philip, right? He was promised the throne of his father, but only after he was violated by Philip. Now this, of course, is done so he knows his place. You, Alexander, will always be beneath me, either in the bedroom or in the political scene, right? Get it? Good. I'm sure you've heard a lot about homoerotic sex in ancient Greece. It wasn't really anal sex like we think of now. When you imagine two men having sex, you think anally, right? But the Greeks, anal sex was only used if you wanted to humiliate someone else. And that's what Justin is getting to, that Alexander was proper fucked by Philip. Alexander from Epirus, of course, right? Not his own son. We weren't that fucked up. We were just a little bit fucked up. Yes, so he was fucked by Philip so he can know his place better, right? The other kind of sex was more like thigh fucking, right? That's what the pedagogues and all the teachers would do to the students. They would put oil on their, on their thighs, and they would thigh fuck them, right? That was seen as acceptable. That's what probably Alexander and Hephaestionus did at a later time. Anally was a different story. But that's what Justin tells us about Philip. Fuck me, what an episode. What a way to end the episode. Hope you enjoyed it. I'm going to read reviews in 1 second. See ya. Now, a couple of reviews. One by Led Zepp 9. I love Led Zeppelin. From United States of America. Title is Great Pod. 5 stars. I've been waiting for an in-depth Alexander podcast for so long, and I'm so happy that I have discovered this. It's a pretty informal tone, which is awesome, and was even able to get my history-hating girlfriend into the show. Can't wait for more episodes. Wow. Thank you, Led Zepp. Amazing review. Thank you for the 5 stars. Now, second review by Tommy Ebbs from United Kingdom. Detailed, engaging is a title, but also at times humorous study on Alexander the Great. Been listening to this podcast for a few weeks now and have been thoroughly enjoying it. It's a great thing to listen to while drowning out the noise at the gym, while also learning about history's greatest figures. Keep up the good work and look forward to further episodes. Thank you both for your amazing review. I think, though, the winner would have to be Led Zepp, because he also is getting his girlfriend into the show, So sharing, that's the only way to help this episode, right? Sharing, writing reviews, and also donating helps a bunch. Hope you liked the episode. See you later, guys. Take care of yourself. Yeah, I should have probably said Led Zepp 9 is also. Send me an email, alexandros.cast@gmail.com, and I will send you a gift. And also, you can find me on Facebook if you can't be bothered with the email, Alexander the Great Podcast. I should come up, hopefully. See ya.